The main reason that most landlords are flocking, to be honest, is there's a lot of wealth leaving the country.
If rents do go up, that in the context of a renter's rights bill.
We love living here, as you know, but we'd be really grateful if the landlord would install a dishwasher. Everyone seems to be aware of it coming, the renters' rights bill.
Landlords are going to have longer relationships on average with tenants, right?
So it's just that balance between well-maintained properties, reasonable tenants, setting the tone from the get-go. You're soon going to only have one chance a year to increase the rent, so I feel the risk is going to be the vast majority of landlords are perfectly good. What's happening is the more rents are going up, understandably, the more tenants are expecting for their higher rent.
So there's compliance that's obviously really important. There's an element of managing the property appropriately, and that, and I guess within that you've talked about there is kind of like, it's going to be really important, the renters' right era, is the relationship with the tenant. It sounds like there's got to be a lot of effort there to be like, just make sure everything's clear, appropriately managed, well boundaried, which is what that is an example of there, isn't it? It's like, look, this is a good landlord, but also like, you've broken it, so can you fix let's both sides be kind and positive and reasonable, then you're onto a winner, I guess.
Because what's happening is the more rents are going up, understandably, the more tenants are expecting for their higher rent. But what they're actually paying for is the bricks and mortar in the property, in essence. It's just that the market conditions around it is causing the value of that to go up. And you know, we had a tenant recently. Most, if not all, of our landlords are really reasonable because we are very reasonable. We don't expect to have the landlord manage us as managing agents. So we're very polite and would explain that if you're looking to micromanage your property manager, you're best off saving yourself the money and managing it yourself. We are going to manage your property, and here's how we manage it. We don't crucify tenants on rent renewals and rent increase. We're reasonable. We won't let them take the mick with maintenance call-outs. And we had a tenant the other day that locked themselves out on a Sunday afternoon, and ordinarily it would be call a locksmith. But one of our viewing team are out, fortunately doing viewings, and we said, no worries, give us half hour and we'll swing by the office, save you the cost of calling out the contractor.
Which are not cheap, like locksmiths.
No, on a Sunday afternoon.
I've done it before, I've been locked out. It's not good.
And so we picked up the spare keys. We're not obligated to do it. They make quite clear that the keys in the office are management sets for emergencies, for leaks, stuff like that. It's not there when you come in and we have this 3 a.m. after night out.
I need a key.
And you've lost your keys. Nice. But we will try and help where we can. So it's just that balance between well-maintained properties, reasonable tenants, setting the tone from the get-go, so everyone's happy and they want to stay.
Does feel like that will be a climate where that's going to be really tense. That's going to have to be really well managed, because you're absolutely right that if rents do go up, that in the context of a renters' rights bill, which is clearly, and the Labour government, we talked about this recently off show, like Labour are really pushing the optics of this at the moment. They're going really heavy on their social media.
They're ramping it up,
They're going really heavy in their sort of PR and comms around it of like, we are looking after renters. This is a great time to rent. So the combination of those two things is definitely going to create. No, entitlement's the wrong word. I don't mean that I don't mean that as a negative way. I don't mean that with anyone coming with any sort of like
cue the comments.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah, come at me in the comments. But like, what I mean. Those two things could lead to people actually expecting a lot more from landlords.
And I almost feel like the whole bill is prepping them, is creating that. And it shouldn't be like that, because it's the vast majority of landlords are perfectly good. The example that I was about to give, but I waffled on about something else, is that we had a tenant, rent increase, the rents had gone up about 8%. We asked for a 4% increase, and they were like, yeah, no problem at all, thank you so much. They were very aware. And then they said, a couple of weeks later, this is how it should be. It's such a perfect example. A couple of weeks later, the tenant emailed in to say, we love living here, as you know, but we'd be really grateful if the landlord would install a dishwasher. And I didn't even realise the last couple of years they've not had a dishwasher. So we kind of didn't ask the landlord. We almost kind of told them that you should really be installing a dishwasher because they're young professionals. It would increase their Electability moving forward. They're great tenants. They're so low maintenance. They're not asking for you to replace their carpet because it would look nicer. It's literally a day-to-day fundamental thing that should be in there. And landlord was like, oh my God, I was meant to do that before they moved in and totally forgot. Please, go ahead and do what you need to do. Yeah,
that seems really good advice, because another part of the renters' rights bill and what the future property market is likely to look like is you are going to get locked in for probably... Landlords are going to have longer relationships on average with tenants, right? On average, it's going to go up, because we know from the bill that's the focus of it. It's giving people longer term security.
Yeah.
So it's more important than ever to give a bit and try and
it really
manage
is
that
give and
relationship.
take, yeah. And no tenant expects to have sit in their rental and have rents not be increased for 5 years. Like, no, that's never been the perception of any tenant I've ever dealt with. And we spoke in the bill, but you're soon going to only have one chance a year to increase the rent. So I feel the risk is going to be, here's my window, ramp it up. But again, with reasonable, I've got another landlord, a good example, who hasn't increased rent for 2 years. And she was like, I really don't want to be an arse to my tenants, but I'm really starting to feel the squeeze. In that 2 years, everything's gone up. And so we had a chat with the tenant and they were absolutely expecting it. They were like, do you know what? I was expecting this call. I was even going to email you guys and say, is it worth reviewing the rent? Because I don't want it to be a massive shock when it comes. And we found a nice happy medium where the landlord isn't quite getting what she probably could, but the tenant's paying less than they would probably have to pay if they moved out. And it's just, so far, everyone seems to be aware of it coming, the renters' rights bill. And I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup in some aspects, but it's not as bad as everyone's. The main reason that most landlords are flocking, to be honest, is there's a lot of wealth leaving the country. Let's not go into that too much, but there is, because of the taxation side of it. And it's usually the taxation side. It's not like, oh my God, tenants are going to be more protected, get rid of this. It's generally a case of, I can't afford to keep it running anymore.
Yeah, it's broader circumstances.
Yeah.